African father in America. Tujikaze, tujikaze, jikaze. Tujikaze, tujikaze, jikaze. African father in America. Tujikaze, tujikaze, jikaze.
You are listening to African Father in America podcast by Simon Javan Okelo, live from Seattle, Washington, USA.
Greetings, everybody. My name is Simon Javan Okelo, and you're listening to the African Father in America podcast. And I'm really privileged to be here with a special guest, my brother Curtiss Calhoun, who is the founder of Curtiss Calhoun Llc, which is a I just want to read you Curtiss's bio real quick so that you really have a good understanding of my brother that has joined me for today's conversation. So Curtiss Calhoun is a Seattle native. He graduated from Grover Cleveland High School and attended Seattle Central College when it was still a community college. Curtiss has a passion for wanting to help people be their best self, and Curtiss became a Certified Transformational Coach in 2016. In that same year, Curtiss founded Curtiss Calhoun Coaching and Consulting, a Seattle-based coaching and consulting firm. Curtiss is also a project manager with Africa Town Central District Preservation and Development Association, as well as a community manager at Black Dot Underground, a small business incubator co-working space in Seattle's historical Central District. My brother Curtiss, again, thank you for making the time to join me for the African Father in America podcast.
Thank you. It's an honor and a privilege to be here, really.
Thank you. Thank you very much. You know, because I'm originally from Kenya, and I've really been privileged here in Seattle to have the opportunity and the honor to work with you and the Africa Town community and a lot of the African American brothers in our city. So yes. A lot of people are always curious about about how things look like here. Mm-hmm. And so the African Father in America podcast is really a platform for us to share our stories and really provide an authentic way for people to learn about Black fathers and African fathers here in America, but also back home.
Agree.
I would just love for you to share with us your story. I love to just start with your childhood, maybe when you're 10 years old, 10 to 15 there. Could you just paint a picture of,
well, can I start a little bit earlier? I promise.
I would love that.
But,
I would love
that. It's key to the story, right?
I would love that.
I was born here in Seattle, Harborview Hospital, to J.D. Calhoun and Jennifer Ray Sanders. But at 18 months, less than 18 months old, my mother was murdered.
Oh.
So that caused our family to be split up. My father I think he might have been 19 years old at the time, wasn't prepared or ready to take care of a son, or a child. So he, my grandmother, paternal grandmother and grandfather raised me. So that's where I got my upbringing with my paternal grandmother and grandfather. As a child, I think I was always wise beyond my years, and it comes probably due to being raised by older people that were giving me more wisdom and seeing that example.
Right.
But just, went to Beacon Hill High School here in Seattle, went out to Madison Middle School in West Seattle. They started busing at that time. And then, like I said, attended Grover Cleveland High School, which is there on Hill as well. Had a very good upbringing, very good childhood. My grandfather worked for a company called Bethlehem Steel and made a very good income. So I didn't want for anything, had nice clothes, always had good food, had nice things. And he would take us out and buy us toys, and, always was treating us, spoiling us, my cousin and I. And so the childhood was a very good childhood coming.
Wow. Man, a lot of the time I remember my childhood, I grew up in the slum, Manyata slum in Kisumu. It's the largest slum in my hometown and the third largest in Kenya. And I probably started wearing shoes when I was like 12 years old. I didn't know anything to do with shoes before then. And the first pair of shoes I wore were my soccer boots, because I played soccer. Yeah. So my team, bought plastic soccer boots for our teammates, you know.
Wow.
Yeah, because there was a plastic factory in our hometown. You know, there's a fish from Lake Victoria. Kisumu is on the shores of Lake Victoria. And there's a fish in Lake Victoria called the Nile perch. And inside this fish, there's something that is used for making plastic.
Really?
So the shoes we were wearing were literally from the lake, you know.
Yeah. Wow.
So locally made shoes. And you know, just listening to your story, it reminded me, you know, especially when you're talking of this sense of abundance, you know. And for me, looking back, you know, before I came to Seattle, I didn't know how much what abundance really was, you know. I was raised in a, you know, even though we were in the slum, I was safe, I was always fed, and I felt I didn't even know I didn't have shoes until I had shoes, you know.
Exactly.
Anyway, so I just wanted to add that and appreciate you for sharing with me, you know, your story of you being young. Right now, you know, once you get to like 16 as an African man, whether you live here in America or whether you live in Africa, you know, you become aware of your identity, and you start being aware of the risks that the threats that exist to even your life, you know. I wanted you to just share with me, you know, growing up, some of the fond memories of being a teenager in Seattle, and you know, some of the friends that you grew up with that you're still you know, making a difference in the community. You know, share with me some of that, please.
Well, it's funny. For me, the danger started a little earlier in second or third grade. That's when busing. I told you they bust us out to West Seattle to a different school. And when we got there first day, getting off the bus, there's protesters. They're almost like in the civil rights days where they didn't want us coming to their school. They were out there protesting that we were coming to the school and making sure that they made that known to the school district and whoever else, you know, they could get their attention. So that was my first experience of kind of like, you know, this color thing means something.
Right. Could you just deepen this part of our conversation a little so that the people who have never been to the US before can really understand what being bused from your neighborhood to a different school district really meant? Just a little bit more.
So what they came up this concept in the early 70s or so about to bus kids from certain areas to other areas so they could kind of get a cultural diversity. You know, they could get a mix of people and understand cultures better, and thought that would be better for us. So that for us, that started, I went to kindergarten, first grade, second grade here on Beacon Hill in Seattle. And then for third grade, that started where they started busing. And that was about 1978, I guess, 1978. It was a different experience because before that, a lot of people looked more like me. So there wasn't a lot of black people in the school in general. Especially black boys. And then, but when we went there, it was predominantly, you know, Caucasian people. So there was an adjustment we had to learn, especially the first year. So, you know, there's certain ways they treated us or certain ways we treated them because, you know, we just didn't know. And it was a learning curve. Luckily, I only had to do that 1 year and I was able to come back because for the middle part of elementary school, they brought you back to the hill. And then for middle school, they shipped you out again. So I was in 4th, 5th, and 6th grade back in Beacon Hill. And then for 7th and 8th grade, I was back in West Seattle. But I was a little older, had a better understanding. It had went on for a few years. So people were kind of, you know, getting that cultural feel and norm, you know, of having to be together. And then for my 9th grade year, I came back and attended Cleveland back on Beacon Hill. But it was a scary experience. And one of the things, the saving graces, I think, is we had a bus monitor. So, you know, we rode the bus out there. There's a black guy who was our bus monitor. And for us, black kids or kids of color, he was like our protection. We felt safe when he was around. We knew, kind of felt that he wouldn't let something happen to us. And when we had an issue, we would go to him. And that was natural. Nobody told us to do that. But just naturally, him being a tall, I think he was probably like 6'2", 6'3", a dark-skinned brother, but we felt comfortable going to him and being able to share things with him and receive help from him when we had issues.
Wow. I was raised in a polygamist marriage, and so my father had a first wife, and then my mom was a second wife. My mom worked in a local hospital in Kisumu, in my hometown, and she was an entrepreneur. So besides working at the hospital, after work she would buy like vegetables and grains like rice and beans, and then divide them into smaller portions and give me mine and give my uncle some, and then we would go and sell it in the neighborhood. And she also had a place where she would sell it from. So this business grew, and she became the supplier of milk and bread in the whole city.
Wow. So that's where you get your entrepreneurial spirit from, huh?
Yes. And you are an entrepreneur too. I wanted you to just talk to us a little bit about Curtiss Calhoun LLC. First of all, how can you even start an LLC, and then what inspired you to start it and what you do with it?
It's not complicated to start an LLC. You just file the paperwork, pay for it. It's just like being a sole proprietor. It's just getting a business license, like an application. It's nothing difficult in the process. Curtiss Calhoun LLC came from, as a young man, I wanted to be a counselor, work with youth and be like kind of a youth counselor. I started going to college for that at Seattle Central, and then I got married early. I got married at 20 years old. I wanted to start a family. I did that, so obviously that took me away from school. I had to go out and find work because we had kids right away. I never had a chance to go back to school. So as my kids became adults and I found, okay, I got some free time on my hands, I can do some things. I started thinking about going back to school and pursuing that again. And I said, well, I don't want to go back to school 4 years. I don't want to do this, that. So I looked for another alternative to be able to enter the game. And I found life coaching. I came across a young man who was doing that. I found that interesting. It didn't require a lot. There is certification. You had to go through some classes, but it definitely didn't take 4 years to get through. So I did that. And then that coupled with probably about 2011, started working with my brother. We formed an organization called Brothers Building, where we wanted to work. Well, like I said, we grew up in a good way, with good things, abundance. But we knew there were still things that were missing in our household, right? So we wanted to be able to provide African-American kids the things that other cultures provided their kids. So we did that through educational events. We did film screenings. We brought in authors. We held smaller community events and things like this to be able to give Black youth what we felt was lacking that we didn't get, but that we started to seek out as we became adults. So that coupled with the wanting to be a counselor started me to want to pursue this coaching. So, and then that's when I formed, it was called ReaLife Coach in the beginning. I was thinking of all these names. I had all these names picked out. And then I just hit a rough patch in life, and I was like, you know what? I have these high-minded ideals of all these things I want to do, but what it really comes down to is what can you really teach somebody that's real that would just help them get through day-to-day trials and tribulations. So I named it ReaLife Coach, and that's how that name came about. But then I eventually just put it as my name. But I came up with this program called the Realifer program. It has 12 principles, and it's just a framework for successful living. I kind of akin it to an athlete, with muscle memory. We have to put things in our head. It's like software, you put in a computer. So when things come up and you have problems, you can use this software now to come up with solutions to the problems. And that's all these things are. 12 principles that you internalize, that when you get into situations, not something you have to think about. That muscle memory kicks in. The brain automatically doesn't revert back to these negative habits or patterns that we had from before. But now we're able to use these new things that we've inputted or programmed our brain with to be able to produce the best result and be our best selves.
Wow. Thank you, my brother. You earlier on, you just spoke about how the moment you fell in love and you had kids, you decided to get a job, you decided to be a responsible father, and a lot of the time there's a perception that we Black fathers are absent, people don't investigate to know under what circumstances are we absent or why, So I wanted you to share with me, ways that we can change this narrative. Yeah.
Well, let me give you a little bit of my the story around that. So I got married. We had kids. I had 3 kids by the time I was 25. But at about 27, the marriage started not to work. And probably due mainly to me. I was a young black man, didn't have any education. So it was a struggle to find work and struggle to stay employed. So it caused stress and pressure on the relationship, not having money. So my wife and I split, and then in 99, I believe, and then about 2003, I became a single parent. My wife said, ex-wife said, I can't really deal with all 3 kids on my own. They're getting old. They're not listening. You need to take them. So I took them, and I was a single parent from 2003 until everybody left the house. And not to say I didn't have a support system, not to say I didn't have my grandmother still there, had friends and other family that helped with that. But being a man, I had 2 daughters. My son was the oldest, and I had 2 younger daughters. And growing up in my family, we had no girls. So I didn't have any sisters, any girl cousins, didn't have any way to understand how to deal with girls. So it was a struggle. So like you're saying, being absentee, I wasn't absentee. I was the only one, and took on all the responsibility. And not that I could replace a mother. Please don't mistake that. But it was a struggle for me. I'm thinking, just, hey, if I'm tougher and really disciplined and crack down, and thought that was the way to go. And understanding now, that isn't the way to go. And wasn't the best way to deal with it. But I'm working 2 jobs. I'm barely getting any sleep and just really short-tempered. But present. And one thing that I always said, I may not have always made the right decision or done the right thing, but there's nobody that could ever say I didn't love my kids and wouldn't do anything. Wow. So it was like on the job training, learning as you go.
It's not easy, man. I have 3 girls myself, and
wow.
The oldest is 6, the second born is 3, the last one is a year and like 2 months, And I've been full-time with them since May last year. My wife is still there. She works 9 to 5, but I decided to leave my 9 to 5 and focus on, building One Vibe, but also creating a side business. One Vibe Media is a side business I'm building. And it includes this podcast. This is one of the first projects out of this new initiative I'm building. But,
great.
Kids are just wonderful. And, I was raised with many, many children around me. From 97 until 2013, my mom had an orphanage home. So every day we had like 60 kids just running around the yard, and when it was mealtime, there was a line. People were lining up. If you're late, you don't get your food. So
I know this is African American fathers, but you sound like you had an amazing mother.
So right now we are living in times when white supremacy is so eminent and black lives are not valued or respected. I wanted you to just share with me some of the ways that you think black men or black fathers particularly can support each other, especially right now.
I know there's an organization on Rainier called DADS. It's an acronym for something. I forget what it is. But they've been around for a very, very long time, doing very good work in the community. So one of the things that I want to start too is a ReaLife men's group, where we can come and share and be able to just share experiences. Because if I had that when I started, being a father or when I became a single father, I think that would have helped me a great deal. Just to be able to glean from someone else's experience and not make those mistakes, to have to learn the right way to do things. Of course, with the white supremacy and the school to prison pipeline and the prison industrial complex, they're taking males out of the home. Right. So it's forcing mothers to have to play both roles, putting pressure and stress on her. And it's hard to raise a young man without a man in the house. We talked the other day, the importance of a father in the house, and not that a mother isn't important, but the importance of a father in the house for a young lady is to see an example of what a real man is, what he does for his family, and how to treat his wife or significant other. And for a young man is always trying to please his father. So first, the fathers teach him as an example what a man is and what he looks like and what a man is supposed to do. But then also giving him that moral support and being there for him as a man and building that confidence in him so that when he gets to the age where he's taking care of himself or taking care of his own family, he's a well-rounded individual, whole individual that can do that in an effective way.
Wow. Thank you very much. We are coming towards the end of our conversation, and I just wanted you to share with us how people can connect with you on social media, how people can stay connected with your work also directly.
So I have all the social media. I'm on Facebook. For the business, it's Curtiss Calhoun Llc, and that's 2 S's in Curtiss. And then I have also another page is Curtiss C. So 2 S's in Curtiss with CEE, and that's more of a personal one. The Calhoun is the business, and the C is the personal one. Same thing on Instagram. So I'm on Instagram with the same 2 monikers. And then I'm on LinkedIn as Curtiss R. Calhoun. So, if you want to make a business connection, that would be the place there. And then, I'm always at Black Dot, which is there on 1437 South Jackson Street, right on 16th and Jackson. That's our place of operations. I'm pretty much there all the time if you wanted to connect with me. And I do have a website also, CurtissCalhoun.com.
Thank you so much, my brother. Now, before we end, I just want you to ask any question or share any thoughts that you feel that we may have not covered during our conversation. Yeah.
As parents, we have a large responsibility in how our kids turn out. I know a lot of times they say, oh, kids will be kids. And, whether once they get a certain age, you don't influence that anyway. But one of the things that I go by is that when they're really young, it has to be child-centered, where it's based on not the child's actions and your feelings, but the child's feelings and your actions. So when a child does something, it's what do you do and how do they feel based on what you do? So you're building and developing that from 0 to about 6 or 7. You're laying the foundation for the way they're going to respond or react or relate to everything in life from that point. Now they can, when they get older, they can change and adjust and receive other information that kind of, they can change, but it will be very difficult if they're not aware of that or don't understand that piece. So that probably would be the main thing, is just the important role that you play early on in a child's development that will really set them up for success or failure in life.
Man, my 6-year-old, the way she looks at me sometime when I do certain things, I know she has absorbed what I just said, and I see it, and I'm like, I know that you got it, but like today, I realized that I'd been asking her to do a lot. She's still young. Then I realized that she has also not been sleeping enough, so she looked exhausted. She still wants to do the things I ask her, but she gets absent-minded. So, I just pulled her and I just told her, I love you. I just want you to know I ask you to do a lot because I know you can do it, but I don't want you to feel that I don't love you. I just want you to know you're loved, even though you're being asked to do a lot. Because, sometimes they just start looking at you like, does this man really love me? He's asking me to wipe the table, wipe the floor. But, I'm teaching her how to keep her own house clean in the future,
Yes. Yeah, and laying the foundation for that strong woman she's going to be. So I would be remiss also if I didn't mention I have a wonderful wife. In my second marriage, who I married in 2006, she was a real big support in being able to help me raise those kids as well. And then, just blending the families, that was always touchy thing, but it really came out well. We have a really great family now. I have 8 grandchildren. We're all one big happy family, and everything has turned out well. So even though it started off rocky, and I've had bumps along the way, I have an amazing woman that I share my life with that has really been tremendous in helping me to be the best father I can be. And we just had another child here 3 years ago. So we have a 3-year-old at home.
I think it's the one I saw you with during the recent, protests.
Yes.
I think at least 3 protests I've seen you with your entire family.
Trying to make a difference, and teaching them young, like we said, laying that foundation. You have a civic responsibility and a duty to be able to take care of the community and the village, right? It takes a village, but you have to protect the village.
Yes. Well, my brother, thank you again so much. And to our listeners of the African Father in America podcast, it's really amazing to, be with my brother Curtiss Calhoun today. We talked about his story. We talked about his work with Curtiss Calhoun Llc. We talked about what a father figure means to him, the perception about Black fathers, how Black fathers can support each other. And he also shared how you can stay connected with him. So with that, I want to ask you also to follow me on Twitter at Javan Okelo and on Instagram at Simon Javan Okelo. And again, thank you for subscribing to the African Father in America on iTunes podcast. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you.
Thank you, my brother.
Father in America. Tujikaze, jikaze. African Father